Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Howard Ming, and I'm Vice President of Client Development here at DISQO, which in a nutshell means that I work with our clients on a daily basis in all aspects of their market research projects, from design to scoping to fielding. Today, I'll also have a member of my team behind the scenes helping me click through the slides. So thank you to Caroline. Today, I'll be talking with you all about the zero-party data advantage. Next slide. Our agenda is going to be quick and easy. We're going to kick things off with a discussion of what zero-party data is. We're going to give you a brief introduction to DISQO and the audience platform that we've built. And then we'll talk about the 3 benefits of zero-party data for market research and why you should be using it in your projects, as well as a discussion of a case study that we ran between Kroger and 8451. Next slide. So before we jump into things, I'd like to talk about the state of our industry today. Current conditions are forcing clients to evaluate how they can get direct access to audience. I've been in audience for the past 10 years. I've never seen a situation like the one we're currently in. Over the last year and a half, we've seen a steady increase in demand for survey research as companies try and make sense of the new normal. And you may not have been able to see it, but I put air quotes around new normal because I feel like we've been talking about it for about a year and a half, and we probably need to come up with a better term for it by now. So this surge in survey demand has come at a time when user attention is more divided than ever, as more services and industries continue to move online. So I don't know about you, but I've been buying groceries online. I've been watching movies online, and this is all taking time away from our users that they normally would have in the past spent on things like market research studies. So in 2021, I believe we've hit an inflection point where demand for audience has outpaced supply. And this has contributed in part to an increase in fraud as bad actors seek to take advantage of the market conditions for their own financial gains. We've seen fraud spike and ebb as an industry for the last year and a half. We've seen it go up and down multiple times as global events and the pandemic have made online survey incentives a viable alternative to a worsening economic situation in many countries. Each time, our industry has responded with a mix of high and low tech approaches to clean house, but it's an ongoing fight that requires new and innovative tactics. And here at DISQO, we've pioneered everything from biometric scanning to low tech postcards sent to houses. But again, it's still something that we think about every single day, and we continue to innovate. On a macro level, governments and individuals have continued to elevate consumer privacy and renew focus on it. This increase in interest in consumer privacy has resulted in new regulations like the California Consumer Privacy Act, and even backlash against mobile apps like WhatsApp from Facebook, which failed to adequately alleviate consumer concerns regarding data sharing. Globally, even countries like China are getting into the game by passing one of the strictest data laws to date recently. The Personal Information Protection Law, or PIPL, blows a lot of the existing regulations like GDPR and CCPA out of the water. But it's not all doom and gloom, right? Partly as a result of the previous 3 points, we are in the middle of a renaissance for behavioral data. This type of observed information provides significant advantages as customers are increasingly digital first. Peering passively into what a user does rather than what they say in a survey provides greater access and quality of data. You're no longer beholden to a response rate for a survey, because once a user agrees to share their behavioral data, they provide it continuously and transparently. Next slide. So let's get into the meat of the presentation, the reason we're all here today. What is zero-party data? Well, Forrester Research defines it as data that a consumer voluntarily shares in a proactive way. The key words being voluntarily and proactive. Next slide. So where did this concept and this term come from? Well, Forrester Research wanted to define self-reported survey data that was only possible from a direct relationship with consumers. So think about those feedback surveys that companies send to you after you buy products from them. When consumers respond to these surveys, they are doing so voluntarily and proactively to share their opinion. DISQO is looking beyond this definition, though. We have pioneered zero-party observed data as well. By layering in behavioral data that users have intentionally and proactively shared, you can access both survey and behavioral data from a single zero-party source. So if you look at this chart, we see that Forrester was really focused on how the data was collected. At the top, we see that they thought of data in three ways: inferred data, observed data, and self-reported data. At the time, when they were coming up with a definition for zero-party data, they focused on self-reported data because there wasn't a way to collect observed data at scale voluntarily. Well, we've built a platform that we believe answers this particular segment. Next slide. Let's get into some examples to demonstrate the difference between zero and other forms of collected data. So going back to zero party, it's intentionally and knowingly volunteered by consumers in exchange for value. For example, when someone becomes a member of DISQO, they choose to provide us demographic, profiling, and behavioral data in exchange for the opportunity to participate in market research studies, which they will then be incentivized for. They know that their data is being collected and they know how it is being used. Now, this stands in contrast to first-party data, which is collected via a direct relationship or interaction with customers through a company's own channels. So a good example would be when someone signs up for a mailing list in order to get a coupon for an online purchase. They are willingly providing that information to a company, but they don't necessarily know what that data is being used for beyond the mailing list. All right. Second-party data is information that is used by another company that the initial data collector has partnered with. So going back to that previous example about the mailing list, if that initial email is then sent to a partner company for further marketing purposes, then it will become second-party data. And finally, third-party data is information that is aggregated by a company from multiple sources, and that company does not have a relationship with the consumer. It's pieced together, and it's not as great as the other forms of data, but there are use cases for it as well. So going back to the email mailing list example one last time, a company can buy emails and other personal information about a user from multiple sites and package it into a CRM list that they then sell to companies for marketing purposes. And in this case, they have no direct relationship with consumer, and they're merely aggregating the data. The consumer is not aware of how their data is being used in this case as well. Next slide. So I understand that was a lot of information to throw at you in a short amount of time. So let's take a quick step back and look at a more lighthearted, cartoonist interpretation of the difference between zero and third-party data. So in this cartoon by Tom Fishburne, we see a user who has previously liked a pair of shoes on an e-commerce platform in the first frame, and this e-commerce platform is letting him know the shoes are on sale. So in the past, the user has proactively shown his preference for these shoes to the site, and this would be the voluntary sharing of information. So when they then come to him and advertise that the shoes are on sale, he's happy about it. In the second frame, we see that the user is being shown a pair of shoes that he previously browsed for, but he didn't interact with that site in the past. He merely browsed for it. So in this case, this is a really good example of how cookie tracking works. The user has interacted with the e-commerce platform. He has a direct relationship with them, so he's okay with it generally. This is how first-party data is used today. In the third frame, we see that the user is a little bit more disturbed because a gym that he's part of has shared their member list with the e-commerce shoe site, because the e-commerce shoe site believes that there's a high correlation between gym membership and buyers of their workout shoes. Now, this happens all the time, and usually users are a little bit more disturbed because they understand that their user data has now been shared with a site they have no affiliation with. But they understand where it came from, so this is a great example of second-party data. And finally, we see the user cowering in fear as a site advertises to him using information gathered from multiple sources that he has no relationship with. This e-commerce platform to him seems like a total stranger, and he is not as receptive to the advertising. So that would be a great example of third-party data. So as you can see, as you move farther from the zero-party data, you lose a lot of impact. Next slide. So now that we've defined what zero-party data is and gone over a few examples, let's talk about how you can access zero-party survey and behavioral data from a single source. DISQO has created a zero-party audience platform. It is built and managed in-house here at DISQO to be a frictionless experience across every interaction for our users. We handle the recruitment of these users, and we carefully manage their experience via a responsive help desk team, and we provide appropriate incentives and an easy redemption process. Consumers join to share their opinions and behaviors, and it is a purely market research-based panel. They're not joining to obtain coupons or anything like that. They are here to share their opinions in market research studies. The platform is 100% zero-party, permission-based, and fully transparent. Our users understand what information is being collected about them. We ask upfront, especially on the behavioral side, whether or not they're okay with sharing this data, and we only do so once they've given us their consent. Finally, we never aggregate with third-party sources. Every user that touches your survey and provides you behavioral data is a member of our site. Next slide. So here at DISQO, Audience Insights is our core business, and the use cases for this type of data are split between three verticals: market research, ad measurement, and data solutions. So market research includes our research API for clients that want to programmatically connect with our platform and obtain access to users at their pace. We also have a managed services team for our clients that prefer to work with a project manager, an account manager, or a sales rep like myself. And we walk them through the entire process, and we handle things for them on these, from everything from programming to design to fielding. We have our ad measurement products, which include brand lift and behavior lift, which help advertisers and corporations measure in-campaign performance. And we have our data solutions vertical, which includes all of our behavioral data products. So these include things like targeted behavioral surveys, where you can send a survey to a user based on observed information that you found online. Let's say they bought a particular product on Amazon. You can then serve them a survey. It also includes our data stream product, which looks at a set of users that is predefined by the client, and we send that particular set of users' data to the client on a regular, ongoing basis. For more information about any of these products, please reach out to a member of our team in the chat or visit our website and drop us a line. Next slide. So regardless of what use case you have or who you are looking to reach, chances are we have a touch point in your audience's journey. We are industry agnostic, measuring the consumer journey across e-commerce, social, and entertainment sites. So for example, on Google, we have 30 million plus total monthly search events, including what they actually searched for. On Amazon, we have 1 million plus monthly product page events, which include things like add to cart and purchase activity. And on YouTube, we have 100,000 plus media start events every single month. And this includes what video they're watching, whether or not they watch the ad, and things like that. These are just 3 sites that we track, but we have many more. We're on all the major search engines. We're on many, many e-commerce sites, including Walmart, Target, and Kroger. And we're on other entertainment sites like Hulu as well, and Netflix. So we truly touch your consumer across every part of their interactions online. Next slide. So now that we've defined the term and discussed how DISQO is expanding the definition, let's talk about the key benefits to zero-party data and why, in our eyes, it's the best party. So the three key benefits are: 1, data quality; 2, respecting the consumer's choice; and 3, unlocking next level insights. So let's dig into each of these a bit more in the next couple slides. Next slide. So first, at the core of all benefits that zero-party data provides is increased confidence in data quality. When you lack a direct relationship with your consumers and respondents, you open the door to potential inaccurate data and fraud. I liken it to a game of telephone. The farther you are from the consumer voice, the more potential noise that can be introduced into your data set. Bypass all those extra steps and hear directly from your consumers by working with a zero-party data source. Next slide. Secondly, when you work with zero-party data, you're respecting the consumer choice and fostering a deeper relationship with them built on trust. You know that he or she is willingly sharing their information for a fair value exchange. When you respect consumer privacy, you get happier respondents that provide higher fidelity data. It's a known fact that happy members who feel valued give better and more detailed responses. And I see this every single day when I work with clients on their projects. When you have repetitive questions or incredibly hard to screen for projects, the user gets frustrated. And a lot of times this leads to straight lining, speeding through surveys, and gibberish and open ends. This respect of the consumer's choice is especially important today as demand outpaces supply. We must continue to foster the relationship our industry has with users to ensure access to audiences for years to come. And finally, there's one other important part that respecting consumer choice provides us. It's the ability to have members consent to digital and app measurement. If you think about tracking a user online across all the different websites they go to, most people would want to agree to something like this. However, when you work with a company that has done this from day one, like DISQO has, then you're able to build on the trust that they have and find this type of data. So from day one here at DISQO, we've always considered our clients to be 1A and our users to be 1B. They're exactly the same in our eyes. We need to value both of them. And for our users, we have provided that great help desk from day one. We provide them their incentives rapidly, and we curate our studies to make sure that they can convert at a high rate. So our users, before we even had a behavioral product, had already begun to develop a sense of trust in DISQO. And once we actually launched our behavioral panel and our different offerings on our data team, when we reached out to them, we saw that a high number of them were willing to sign up for the behavioral tracking. And interestingly enough, they don't just sign up for a short term and disable it. We find that on average, our users are here for more than 3 months. And we've had this product for 1.5 years, 2 years now, and we have some users that have been steady through that entire time. In my past life, I've worked on many passive metering projects which require users to download an app onto their phone, and then we track them in real time. And I used to find that we would have users disable that immediately after they received an incentive, which could be within a week. So you wouldn't really gain as much value from that type of transactional experience. Next slide. So the final benefit we'll talk about today, though there are many more, is unlocking a new world of insights. To get a full picture of your audience and understand consumers' motivations, intentions, interests, and preferences, you need to combine zero-party survey and behavioral data from a single source. Not only will you be able to field a study to answer your research question, but you can then validate that answer in real time with real-world observed data, effectively bridging the recall gap between what consumers think and what the consumers actually do. And we found in research conducted last year that recall gap could lead to differences of as much as 20%. If you're interested in learning more about this internal research that we conducted on the recall gap, you can visit our website. Next slide. So let's begin to wrap things up with a quick dive into a research case study we did with Kroger and 8451. In March of 2019, Kroger came to DISQO with a need to understand the rapidly changing online grocery market. They recognized that within a year or two, consumers could be spending $1 trillion or more on online grocery, and Kroger wanted to optimize their online offerings to capitalize on this major shift. Now, this was 2019. We all know that in 2020, this accelerated massively. I think by some estimates, in 1 year, we gained as much transition to online offerings as we would have gotten at our current pace for 10 years. So 10 years in 1 year was massive. So Kroger used DISQO's different product offerings to develop a detailed portrait of how people actually shopped online at Kroger. When an individual that was part of DISQO added an item to their cart at Kroger.com or two of their major competitors, we triggered a survey to be sent to that particular user. We also began tracking their digital behavior of these members for 24 hours. All in all, we collected data from 1,800 shopping baskets and collected millions of event-level data points. As a result, Kroger found that they had the highest active to total time during a shopping session, which showed that they did a great job keeping their customers' attention. Unfortunately, they saw that 20% of the users who added items to a cart didn't end up checking out. So when we followed up on this behavioral data point with a survey, we asked them about that, why they didn't continue through to the checkout process. We found that many of the users used the basket feature as a grocery list, but forgot to actually complete the sale. So to optimize, Kroger now sends personalized email reminders about the staples in your cart to encourage users to complete transactions. We also uncovered a few other interesting data points using our behavioral data. We found that shoppers tended to shop while concurrently using media and social sites like YouTube and Pinterest, which opens up potentially interesting partnership opportunities. We also found that Kroger checkouts took 25% longer than competitor sites, which revealed additional areas for them to optimize and improve the user experience on their Kroger.com site. So with a combined view of what people say and do during the sales process, Kroger derived actionable advantages that greatly increase their ability to capture the growing online grocery shopping market. Next slide. As you can see, zero-party data is capable of some pretty sophisticated insights, but that doesn't mean that it's actually hard to access. Zero-party panel data is available through our research API today. DISQO's research APIs allow you access to 100% zero-party data and connect it directly to your project management system. Not only will you have access to users, but you'll be able to tap into our extensive profiling library, which will improve your study's speed, efficiency, and data accuracy. You'll be able to maximize the volume of respondents by streamlining the survey process through efficient management of projects and profiling. And finally, we work with each client to understand their special needs. We want to understand your book of business so that we can provide an optimized experience. Next slide. So if there's one thing that I want you to take away from today's presentation, it's this slide. 100% of DISQO's audience is zero-party. We never aggregate from other sources into the data to fulfill your sample. So I'd like you to ask yourself, are you guaranteed 100% zero-party data in your sample today? Or are you getting a daisy chain of respondents from multiple companies? And I've personally tested many research studies that have redirected users from redirect site to redirect site until I reach the final client survey. And at each redirect, I get asked the same questions. I get asked my age again, my gender, and a few profiling questions. And it could be as long as 5 minutes before I actually get to an end client survey. So if you think about that user experience, by the time they reach a market research study, they're tired, they're cranky, and they have a higher tendency to provide bad data. So I encourage you, work with zero party. Next slide. And that leads to a call to action. Demand zero-party data whenever possible. It leads to better quality sample. It gives you access to single-sourced linked behavioral data. And finally, when you work with zero-party data, you're able to automate for speed and scale. Next slide. So I hope that you all found today's presentation interesting and potentially thought-provoking. Please reach out to myself or members of the DISQO team if you have any follow-up questions. Copies of the case study we discussed and other information on zero-party data is available at our website at disqo.com. That's DISQO with a Q. Once again, my name is Howard Ming, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all about zero-party data. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.